Let's say human being eaten by alien. Would the alien prefer free range human? Agriculture system, we have three components, basically like all system in geography: input, processes, and output. And then further in different categories, we have different types. So for input, we have both physical input and cultural input. Sometimes you also talk about economic input, but basically you can consider that the natural input, like the syllabus, and human input. So human input would be both cultural and economic. So cultural and social is kind of the same. So let's talk about physical input, natural input first. So natural physical has no human involvement. So if you assume there's no humanity, like human as a species doesn't exist at all, these type of input will still be there. But for cultural and economic input, without human, without invention of human, these type of input won't exist. Okay, so that is a clear differentiation. So for example, physical input we have climate. So doesn't matter there are animals at all or no, there will be climate, temperature and rainfall. These two basically. Soil, we have the land and we have soil. The land as well. Water, fresh water in this case, because in agriculture we use only fresh water. We don't use seawater. Okay. Wind, movement of air means wind. So wind helps in several aspects in terms of agriculture. Maybe pollination of crops, right? Just like in wildlife ecosystem, plants spread and reproduce through pollens and with the help of wind. Okay. Then there are seed. So it's how the crops get to be grown because of seed, and livestock as well. So this is another type, pastoral livestock farming. That would be livestock. Okay. So these all exist with or without human. Okay. Cultural input. So these are all invented or because of human. So first, labor is human, right? So farm labor is a critical input in the agriculture system because nature doesn't plant itself. Or I mean, nature doesn't carry out agriculture activity. Land tenure. So this one is either you buy the land or you rent the land. So you could own it because of the family ownership of that piece of land. So with the land tenure comes a lot of conflict and inequality because of that. So that would become history. So let's not talk about it. Farm size. So farm size determine the output as well. Okay. Economic input, we have capital. So capital is money basically, but we don't use the word money. We use capital because money is a medium of exchange and a storehold of value. But capital is used for investment. So the money made from selling agricultural products are reinvested most of the time into the next harvest or into the next crops, okay, or the next livestock. So most of the profit from selling the agricultural output are usually invested back in buying input again. Let's not talk about transnational corporation or big agricultural firms. Those is another story. Technology. So it doesn't have to be computer technology. It could be as simple as iron tool, right? So you have an axe, you have the basically the plower to plow the land. So that is also technology. Not necessarily have to be tractor, combine harvester, those modern day technology. Okay. Management of the farm. So it's about human managing farm labor, managing the process. Transport. So it's to transport most of the time output. So farm produce, when they are harvested, livestock, when they're ready to be sold, they will be transported out of the farm to the market. So that is important. And usually In the world, almost 1/3 of farm output are waste during transport. So we don't really have a shortage of food supply, but we have a problem in distribution of the food. So it's not like we don't have enough food, but the distribution system is not good enough. So especially in less developed country, a lot of crops, vegetables perished in the process of being transported to the market because those less developed country, they do not have the refrigerated truck. So all these fresh vegetables, fruits perished, basically decayed and gone, can't be sold, and it's just wasted. So a lot of time it's bad for everyone. Like the farmer lose the income, and then the market doesn't get the food supply. So it's all bad. Government. So there will be regulation, sometimes tax, with regard to the land, with regard to the farm produce, so a lot of things. The market, where the food produce are being sold, we have demand and supply, and then the price mechanism. So there's a lot because we need to distribute the food and the farm produce, and then farming buildings, relatively minor. So these are all the farming input in the agriculture system. So some of them are very important, some of them not as important, determining on the type of agriculture. Processes, we mainly have two types of farming, arable or pastoral. So different types of farming involve different farming processes. The first one, arable, if you just imagine, most of the time, people imagine farmer will be carrying out arable farming. That is the typical image. So you need to plow the land, loosen the soil before you can sow the seed, or basically seeding. So you plant the seed and then you have to irrigate, right? So just like what you do if you have indoor plant at home, right? So you have a plot of soil, put the seed in, irrigate, put it under the sun. Sometimes you need to add fertilizer, and it's very important in modern day agriculture. So without fertilizer, the farming output will be dropped significantly. And that's why it's very important to have the fertilizer even before the planting season, because they need to add the fertilizer before seeding actually, so that the soil has enough nutrient. Pest control, so that the crops won't be eaten by the pest, right? So two sides of things. One, it doesn't look good if you have the vegetables, leaves, all being bitten by the pest, right? Let's say you have vegetables, but then you go to the market and the vegetables are all like full of holes bitten by the pest. Then you won't buy it, right? Because it looks ugly. And the fruit will be the same. Let's say you go to supermarket, you buy an apple, but there's a worm inside. You just throw it away, right? So you don't want to eat it. And if you see a hole on the apple, you're not going to buy it. So pest is problematic. And not just for biting bits of it, but what if they eat the whole thing, right? So for example, like grapes, small, right? Like berries, these are small fruits that will be eaten entirely by the pest. So if there are pests to the farmer, it's a very problematic situation because they have to keep control of that. Sometimes use pesticide, and there is also harvesting. So after you have grown the crops, it's time to harvest. So you harvest it and then send it to the market. Okay. Pastoral farming would be relatively straightforward. You either buy it from the market or buy from the, I don't know what it's called, but you buy somewhere else, then you raise it by feeding it, grazing it, just let it run, right? Sometimes if you are in UK supermarket, you see the free range eggs, right? Because sometimes people prefer free range egg. You know what that is? They think the chicken are healthier so that the eggs will be better. Which is, I mean, it makes sense to a certain degree. I don't know whether there's a huge difference, but it's more expensive. Don't know why. So, and then there is the joke of aliens. So, let's say human being eaten by alien. Would the alien prefer free range human? That's the interesting thing, right? Anyway, so output, we have useful output and useless output. So useful output obviously are deemed useful because they can make money. For example, crops, you grow it in order to sell it, right? Livestock, there are products associated with the byproduct of the livestock. Let's say you have the meat, you have the feather, eggs, you have the milk. So all these are products, valuable product from doing the agricultural practice. And there are also useless output. For example, animal waste, right? You're not going to sell it, right? Nobody's going to buy it. So these are useless output. Sometimes you have crop residues after harvesting. So imagine if you have rice harvesting. Most of the time, they only collect the rice grain, right? But then the leaf, the stem are all left on the field. Same with corn. Animal manure is the same as waste, basically. So excretion from the animal. So animal manure. Sometimes it's useful if you carry out composting, like organic farming, Pollutants. So these are waste of chemicals. So residue of fertilizer, pesticides. So these are pollutant. No good. No, you can't recycle it. And if it get washed into the river, into the lake, it becomes pollutant. So not good.